Well, as many of you know, the Temple Mount was shut down when a rabbi was shot, and then the suspect was then killed. Since then, tensions have risen on the Temple Mount and throughout Jerusalem. Various Arab factions have threatened Israel, and one of them being Jordan, who says that if Israel does not reopen the Temple Mount and allow Muslims to enter the holy site again, Israel's peace treaty with Jordan would be in danger. Now, Jordan has threatened this type of action more than once over the last few weeks. They seem to believe that this peace treaty with Jordan is something high on Israel's list of priorities. And evidently it is, because Israel has partially reopened the Temple Mount and has allowed Arabs and Muslims back on the Temple Mount. And certainly that does not include Jews. And I think more than anything, I believe is probably pressure from the United States and the European Union that probably got the holy site reopened. Now, would Jordan in fact break their peace accord with Israel? It's highly, highly unlikely. At least not over something of this nature. You have to remember, what diplomats say out loud normally is for the public to hear, not necessarily a fact. Meaning right now, as we know, for example, the United States and Israel is saying a lot of things out loud that would make one think that their relationship is on the rocks. And certainly I wouldn't say that Israel and the United States are in the process of having a good relationship. But it isn't necessarily from what is being said out in public. But the interest of both Israel and the United States is far greater in importance than what you hear out in the public or out loud. So don't think for a second that Israel and the United States are about ready to have a divorce. That wouldn't be up to the Obama administration. Israeli-U.S. relationship is not based upon an 8-year run of a U.S. president, nor of Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu. The interest of the United States is ongoing, whether Mr. Obama is in office or not. So frankly, U.S. relations is much greater than what Mr. Obama or anyone in his administration could say or do. But don't get me wrong, Israel is going to be betrayed by the United States because it will be in the interest of the U.S. to do so in the near future. But it certainly won't be over these little spats that they've been having out loud. Now the question is getting back to the Temple Mount, is Israel about ready to make a bold move to take over the Temple Mount? Certainly the rumor mill out there is that they are. But the truth of the matter is that would bring about a major uproar amongst not only the Palestinians, but the rest of the Islamic world. And don't get me wrong, it's not as though the Islamic world is going to gather together and destroy Israel because of this. We need to understand that if the Islamic world thought that they could come together and destroy Israel, they would do it, but they know better than that. Israel is a very powerful nation that they understand that they cannot defeat. That's why in Ezekiel 38 and 39, it won't be until Russia enters into the mix that the Gog and Magog war will proceed. But it is not in the U.S. or the Europeans' interest to have these ongoing Temple Mount disturbances that will cause much bloodshed. So I wouldn't expect that this Temple Mount shutdown or the takeover of Israel is imminent. Now, of course, we know that at some point in time, the Bible does say that Israel would have to be able to start the sacrifices back up, and a temple will have to be created, and that's found in Daniel 9, 25 through 27, and also in Revelation chapter 11. So there will be at some point in time a new temple built before the middle of the tribulation period comes about. And we also know that every stick of the temple, the new temple, has already been created, and that it will be, when it does, in fact, come the day in which the temple will be created, it will come up, and it will go up very quickly. Some estimates believe that it will be less than 6 months in which a magnificent temple will be created. Now, my prediction is that when the Gog and Magog war takes place, that God will pour down his tremendous wrath upon the Islamic nations who will attack against Israel, and also Russia, and he will cause the earth to shake. In fact, this is biblical. and a great worldwide earthquake will take place, the Bible says. But the epicenter of this earthquake will be in the mountains of Jerusalem. And I believe that he will also shake the Temple Mount, and the mosque will be destroyed, and all other buildings that are on the Temple Mount related to the Islamic world. And the fear of God will come down upon the Islamic world, and they will flee from Jerusalem and Israel. And this mighty victory will prompt, and it will be a sign that Israel is to rebuild their temple. And at this point, I believe that is when they will rebuild their temple. But although not out of the question, I would highly doubt that Israel would ever be able to go to live side by side on the Temple Mount with the Islamic mosque and a new Israeli temple at the same time. I don't foresee that day coming, but I don't rule it out, but it's highly, highly unlikely. You simply don't know what's going to happen once the rapture of the church takes place and the Antichrist does rise and presents his peace proposal. You don't know how powerful he will be. And I have a feeling that we simply don't know how desperate people will be in order to follow him. You know, when Hitler rose, many were mesmerized by Hitler's abilities and by his leadership. And certainly he had a lot of flawed moments as well. But the bottom line is he was a mesmerizing figure. I have a hard time believing that this particular leader will be many, many more times more mesmerizing. You have to remember, it'll be to the point to where that the Antichrist will absolutely believe he's God and will ask for worship and demand it, and many will do so. And much of the world will do it willingly. And he will do so through a lot of deception and witchcraft. And I believe that he will make people believe that he can do anything, including cure the economy worldwide. That will be a part of his deception, I do believe. Now on to what I believe is very troubling for Israel at this point in time. And one is that there's a domino effect going on in the European Union of different nations recognizing Palestine as a state. And of course, as many of you know, the Palestinians have taken their fight to the UN. And of course, the United States has come down and said that they would veto anything. But at this point, the Security Council may very well be made up of enough nations that the U.S. veto may not matter. And this is what a recent article says coming out of Vienna. It says the UN Security Council may vote on the resolution on Palestinian lands next month. Russian Deputy Foreign Minister Gatilov told a journalist on Wednesday. Palestinians are very disappointed by the lack of progress in the negotiation process, and that the settlement activity is continuing on the occupied territories. As we understand, they see no other way than turning to the UN, the Russian diplomat said. Gatilov said, although it is still unknown when the 15-member council will gather, such a vote is likely to be held amid the crisis situation, giving no further details. In early October, Palestine, together with Arab countries, prepared at UN Secretary Council draft resolution that sets November 2016 as a deadline for ending the Israeli occupation. Now, frankly, I believe this is the beginning stages of when Israel will have to start leaving the occupied, as they call it, the occupied area of the West Bank. Now, at this point, they're giving Israel 2 years to get out of the West Bank and also turn over East Jerusalem. But I believe, as the Bible has stated in Daniel 9 and 27, that they will give up and will agree to a peace accord that will include many. I think it's going to be with the 57 Arab and Islamic nations that I talked about in my last report, and that these nations would begin to recognize Israel and also to acknowledge their existence. But I believe in return that Israel would indeed agree to phase out of the West Bank and do it over a 7-year period of time. Now, how that will be accomplished, it's unknown, of course, but as I said before, the Antichrist will be a very mesmerizing and powerful leader who will come on the scene and will make this happen. Now, going on with the article, it says that the Palestinian draft resolution also demands an end to all Israeli military operations, reprisals forced displacement of civilians, and all acts of violence and hostilities. In 2012, the United Nations General Assembly changed Palestine's entity status to a non-member observer state, affirming the right of the Palestinian people to self-determination. A total of 134 member states of the United Nations have recognized the state of Palestine by September of 2013. Palestine was officially acknowledged as a sovereign state by the Soviet Union in November of 1988. Well, certainly this is an ongoing event, and we will have to wait and see where it actually leads to. We know in the end that Israel is going to make peace with the Antichrist and with many. And I believe that that situation is beginning to unfold and may lead to this taking place in the near future. But of course, I believe the rapture of the church is going to take place first. And as always, if you don't know the Lord, you need to make that commitment toward Christ as soon as possible. Certainly the rapture of the church will take place at any moment, but the most pressing and alarming situation for all is that they could die at any moment. And if you did, where would you spend eternity? As I've said many times, 150,000 people die every single day. The vast majority of them will end up in a burning hell according to the Bible. Don't let that happen to you. Come to Christ today. And you, Christian, if you have family members who don't know the Lord, and it looks as though they may end up in the tribulation period, you need to get my tribulation period survival guide one way or the other, either through my free download or get my paperback book. You can order it in the About section below this video. Well, this is Terry Malone with the Calvary Prophecy Report.